Crimea is now officially a part of Russia. President Obama officially looked really foolish, and I'm upset about it for his sake. And what role does history, theology, ethics, what role does all of this even play in what's going on? Hopefully today, you'll learn more. This is the Voice of Resistance.
Standing for truth in the four corners of America. Fighting for justice on the frontiers of the culture wars. And turning resistance into an art form. Randall Terry.
Putin comes out looking like a Russian Superman. Obama comes out embarrassed. NATO is scrambling to decide exactly what it needs to do to say to Russia, okay, this far and no further. Ukraine says, we don't want to be a part of NATO. There's a lot to talk about today. Let's start with the very simple fact that Crimea has now been absorbed into Russia. It is now officially a part of Russia. Putin gave, from all commentators that I've seen, a fairly compelling speech to his own parliament in which he focused on history and the double standard that Western nations are employing concerning Crimea coming back to Russia, and the fact that Kosovo, a few years ago, after Yugoslavia broke up, the Kosovo was able to have its own referendum to be a free nation, and that NATO allies sent troops there to ensure that they would be able to have the vote. Russia said, look, you can't call something black one day and white another day. I want you to understand, I am not in any manner, shape, or form a protagonist for Putin or for Russia. But my job as a news broadcaster and as a commentator is to call balls and strikes as they actually are, not like I would wish them to be, okay? And the simple fact is that Crimea has a long history with Russia. They do. And with the deep water port at Sevastopol, there is no way that Russia is going to allow Crimea to be in the hands of a hostile government. They're just not. You realize that there is a referendum coming up in Quebec, okay? Can you imagine if Quebec secedes from Canada and then it starts a domino effect, and maybe British Columbia on the west coast of Canada says, well, we would like to become Russia Columbia. We're going to secede and we're going to form closer ties with Russia. So imagine if Quebec and Russia, or rather Quebec and British Columbia, both said, we want to have some type of military alliance with Russia. We're going to allow Russia to put troops here. We're going to allow Russia to put naval bases here. We're going to allow Russia to put airfields here. We're going to allow Russia to have mobile missiles here. Do you think that the United States is going to let that happen? Even if the people of Quebec and British Columbia want it to happen? Well, anyway, Ukraine has stated that it is not going to seek NATO membership. The North Atlantic Treaty Organization was founded in 1949 to have a confederacy of the victorious allies to stand against the Soviet Union. After World War II, tragically, President Roosevelt allowed Stalin to gobble up nations, the Baltic states, Poland, other nations, and East Germany, obviously. And the Allies woke up and thought, oh my goodness, Stalin is a monster, and the goal of the Soviet Union is to spread communism and to turn free peoples into slave states. So they created NATO. The Cold War lasted for 40 plus years until the disintegration of the Soviet Union in 1991. At that time, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, ultimately all of those former Soviet satellite nations became a part of NATO. Now, NATO is obliged to protect them militarily. So the Brits are actually sending a small handful of high-tech fighters into the Baltic states right now. There are discussions with Poland on making Poland a significant military force so that it could fend off Russia if it needed to in the beginning stages while the other NATO allies came along to her aid. I've got to take a break. When we come back, I want to talk to you about that borders are not sacrosanct. Borders are not sacred, okay? Now, some of you are going to think I'm nuts, but just hear me out, okay? Borders are not sacred. And I want to discuss what idiot at the White House or in Foggy Bottom with our U.S. foreign policy, what idiot proposed to have the list of 11 people that are now sanctioned by the U.S. government? I actually was angry. It made Obama look like a fool, and I'm still an American. I don't want our president to look like a fool, even if he is one. This is the voice of resistance.
Hey, everyone's been asking me, when's Unstoppable coming out on DVD? Well, it's here. And I have created my own deluxe signature version of Unstoppable that contains not only the movie, but over 5 hours of additional curriculum and study guides for your family. It's perfect for your homeschool, educational facility, small group Bible study, and family devotions. And I'm going to share with you some of the spiritual warfare that surrounded the release of this film. This box set also includes extended scenes, new music videos, the inside scoop on the whole Facebook controversy. So what are you waiting for? I made this special version with my family in mind, and I know your family will be blessed by it too. Unstoppable 2.0 Deluxe Signature Version, available only here at KurtCameron.com. I can't wait for you to experience what's inside.
Borders are not inviolate. What that means is that national borders between nations may be crossed for military purposes. They don't have to exist the way they are until the end of time, any more than they have existed as they are since the dawn of time. Now, for those of you who need a very simple illustration, let's look at our homes. Each of us rightly believes no trespassing. By definition, in your home, you should be able to be there and to not have anyone come in, right? Right. Unless there is a significant crime being committed. These unthinking people that say, well, I don't care what someone does in their own bedroom. Well, really? So if the bedroom is the scene of a horrific crime, then no one can go in and stop the crime? If there are crimes that are happening in a home, all right, of a significant magnitude, you can fill in the blank what crime you could think of. It is the right and the duty of police to break the door down and to go in. But even beyond that, it is the right of concerned neighbors. Okay? If you heard the cries of a child, some poor little boy, some poor little girl, something horrible was happening, and you had the ability to go into the house and stop the crime while other authorities were coming, if you had the ability to be a good Samaritan in that situation, it is your right to do so. Nobody can say inside of our home we can have a cocaine manufacturing plant. Are you following me? Well, national borders are the same way. The concept of just war that we have discussed, and by the way, if you missed yesterday's program, I did a little in-depth look, short, but on the theory of just war. Go online at our website and look at it. Or just do your own research and look at the theory of just war. Of course, a nation has the right to go into another nation for the pursuit of justice, not necessarily for the pursuit of money. I mean, when you look at what Russia is doing with Crimea, the people of Crimea voted overwhelmingly to go back to Russia. Russia has a long history with Crimea being a part of Russia. Russia has a deep water port in Sevastopol, all right? When the U.S. took the Cherokee lands away by force from the Cherokee people, the people didn't want it. There was no vote. We didn't have a deep water port. We had no military interest whatsoever, and we had no history with the land. What we wanted was gold. What the U.S. government wanted, Andrew Jackson wanted, was gold and land, real estate, farmland. It was abominable. It was evil. It was treacherous. Anyway, I have to accept the fact that borders are not inviolate. And if another murderous rampage happens somewhere in the world, like happened in Rwanda, and neighboring countries have the ability to go in and stop it, it is our right to do so. It is our duty to do so. And the specious argument that all internal issues inside of any government, we get to do what we want here and nobody can tell us anything, it's ludicrous. It's not based in history. And it's based on a bad understanding of international law. All right. Let's talk about hopefully our leaders ratcheting things down. All right? I don't think Russia is going to try and take the Baltic states. It would be suicide if they did, because it will launch a war between NATO and Russia. Russia is not going to try and take any former Soviet republic that is a part of NATO. They're just not going to do it. And Putin is saying that they're not going to try and take Ukraine. We'll see. But by Ukraine saying, we don't want to be a part of NATO, that's realpolitik. That's Ukraine saying, look, we recognize we share this huge border with Russia. This huge border with Russia. We already have NATO members, Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, Poland. We already have NATO members that are bordering Russia that are part of NATO. But that happened after the Soviet Union disintegrated and they were in a weakened state. Now with Putin as their leader, with Russia becoming a stronger nation again, Russia is not going to abide having Ukraine be in NATO with a border that big. Do they have the right to do that? I don't know. I would argue they probably don't, especially because human rights, freedom, right? Freedom of religion, freedom of the press, freedom of association. Those are the foundational rights that God has given us, the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as delineated in our Declaration of Independence. These are the fundamental human rights whereby a nation could cross into another nation's border to try and protect life and liberty and property. I don't think that Russia can make a compelling argument that it has to go in to Ukraine to defend Russian peoples there. I mean, I don't buy it. So hopefully things will back down. But in the meantime, don't worry. Comrade Obama has picked 11 Russian officials to levy sanctions against. This is so embarrassing. I would love to know who could be fired at the White House for even allowing the president to do or to say this. We'll talk about it when we come back. This is the Voice of Resistance. Do you want to have knowledge, wisdom, discernment? If so, you have to read good books on theology, history, books that look at the lives of great men and women. So to help you to become a more effective Christian, a better witness for truth, somebody who can engage in productive conversation that exhorts and edifies those that you speak with, we're going to do something crazy. We're offering you these 7 books for a gift of any size. You just pay for the shipping and handling, and then give whatever gift that you can, and we will send them to you. But just to make it a little bit more crazy, I will send you a second copy of my 3 books, autographed. You can give them as a gift to your pastor or to a family member and help extend truth and justice in the world. This is while supplies last.
Don't try to be subtle or clever. Use a pile driver. Hit the point once, then come back and hit it a second time. A tremendous whack. Sir Winston Churchill.
Our Commander-in-Chief, Barack Hussein Obama, took to the podium in the White House press room and, among other things, said this.
As an initial step, I'm authorizing sanctions on Russian officials, entities operating in the arms sector in Russia, and individuals who provide material support to senior officials of the Russian government.
All right, so he's authorized sanctions, and then the U.S. made the list known. And there you see them, these 11 people who most of us have never heard of. And here's the embarrassing thing, okay? The Deputy Prime Minister of Russia, Dmitry Rogozin, tweeted, all right? So when the leader of the United States of America steps in it that deep that a tweet is going to make international news, you know that it's embarrassing, okay? And I'm really and honestly ticked that somebody at the State Department approved this and thought that this would be a good idea. So here is what the Deputy Prime Minister said. Comrade Obama, what should those who have neither accounts nor property abroad do? Have you thought about it? I think the decree of the President of the United States was written by some joker. And he's right. These, did anyone do a background check? Did anyone take a look and say, well, let's actually look and see if they have any assets that we can freeze or any property that we can take? And so the Russians, almost like some Shakespearean comedy, are now creating their own list of, and Dick Durbin is going to be on that list of people that they're going to sanction. It really now is becoming comical. And John McCain is saying, well, I think that I'll be on that list. I want to make a personal plea to whoever in Russia is drafting this American list. Please, please, don't put McCain on the list. Please. He's such a squish. He's not a threat to you. You know that. And we don't want him to be puffed up and bolstered because he's been so wretched. He really has been. Don't give him the honor of being on a short list from Russia of those who Russia is going to sanction. All right. Russia has said, of course, in one of its news broadcasts, you probably have also heard that Russia is one of the only nations, or maybe the only nation, that could turn America into radioactive ash. So we don't want that, all right? We do not want a hot war. A Cold War means that there's people at each other's throat, but no one's firing. It's not a hot war. We do not want a hot war with Russia. And if cooler heads prevail, we won't have one. But Crimea is gone, people. It's gone. And the fact that European nations or America is saying that they're not going to recognize Crimea being a part of Russia, it's ludicrous. It's absurd. It's absurd. So all you have to do is think through what we would do if there was a hostile nation that emerged to our north. But I think that there's one other implication here. Obama keeps saying this is against international law. I have a master's degree in diplomacy and international terrorism, and I'm not sure what international law he's referring to, okay? Or what one he's misreading. Clearly, the people of Crimea overwhelmingly want to be a part of Russia. And they got their wish. I think, and I could be totally wrong, but I think this has to do with Texas. If people, or some other state in the Union, Hawaii. I mean, there's a secessionist movement in Hawaii. It's been alive ever since America stole Hawaii. If the people of Hawaii or the people of Texas voted to leave the Union, is Obama going to say it's a violation of international law? Is he going to, by force, keep them in? In other words, what Obama is saying is the inverse is also true. If Crimea can't go to Russia, can Texas or Hawaii leave America? I'm going to take a break. This is the voice of resistance. Do you want to get America out of the hands of wicked and unjust men and women who are destroying the republic before our eyes, and put leadership back into the hands of righteous men and women so that we don't die as a nation? Well, you're talking about social revolution, and there are rules in social revolution. We can look at the victorious social revolutions of the past, such as the end of slavery, the end of child labor, women's voting rights, the end of segregation, and so much more, and learn from their victories. Look at their actions, their images, their rhetoric, their sacrifices, and their final fruit. We will send you this series that originally cost $129, 7 books for students, 1 teacher's guide, if you'll give a gift of any size and just pay for shipping and handling. Take advantage of it today. Have you ever stopped to think that the people who are giving the President of the United States advice regarding foreign affairs, that they're people just like you and I, okay? They once were little boys or little girls who played with Legos or dolls or whatever, okay? And they decided to pursue a path, and they decided to pursue a course of study in which they would become knowledgeable about geography and geopolitical history. And friend, these things matter. Ethics, an understanding of moral absolutes versus moral relativism, it matters. Understanding how we got to the place we are right now, where people are trying to push the laws of God out of the public square and out of domestic policy debates and foreign policy debates. How did we get here? And how do we reverse course? Okay? And how critical is it what people we have in office? These things all matter. And the advent of devices, all right, the advent of radio and then newsreels, and movies, and then television, and then the internet, and then just instant access to knowledge on one hand, but circuses on another, has had a fairly debilitating impact on people. In other words, there's nothing inherently wrong with a television set or a computer, because you're watching me on it, right? There's nothing inherently immoral about it. The issue is the lack of true study, the lack of true reading, the lack of contemplation, association. This has made us all kind of, we want people to tell us what's going on. I invite you, go to our website and read, and then read some more. Maybe watch one of the training series, the TV training series. Look at the book reading lists that we provide you along the way, and become your own scholar so you know what's going on. And maybe, just maybe, you'll be a part of the new team of people that help steer the ship of state back to righteousness. God bless you.